So I'll try to speak rather fast because there is too many slides. How do I get my slides on here? What happened here? Why is this not in? I don't know. Wait, who did this? Escape?
I'm supposed to.
Yeah. Okay, good. So Ander gave me this title, and I first had to explore what it meant. So we need some semantics as an introduction to understand what the title means. We need to present a bit the forest to understand what risks there could be. What are the risks usually people tend to evaluate when they speak about land degradation? What do we actually know? And at the end, what can we say about what we know? And I want to mention that there's an expertise-like approach. I looked at from what I know. I work in soil science, roots, root profiles, and nutrients. So there's many things I don't know much about. So I did what I could in the time I had. And of course, some of the people here have presented other things that are complementary to what I could tell about this. I will regroup the first 3 items together, and the rest I will take a bit more time for that. So I found quite a few definitions of land degradation, and I took this one for the presentation. So any reduction in the possibility to supply goods and services can be termed land degradation. And in our case, we want to relate this to forest cover. Goods and services, you could make definitions of this, and if you do so, you will find that it's quite broad. And it also, what also came out of it is that it's not necessarily one type of effect. It could be the humans that do it, it could be just nature. For all kinds of reasons, there may be land degradation. So now I sort of understand the title, and I realized that there's many facts that I should look at while looking at the forest in Aquitaine. There are some historical notes about the land degradation threats in Aquitaine. Although at that time the goods and services were quite different from today. Did we learn a lot from those historical points of view? Not really, because what happened is that in that case, in that example, there was locally degradation of the forest that disappeared, and there was more agricultural and less forest. So that was the case 2,000 years ago. And what do we know about Aquitaine over the last 100 years or so? Aquitaine is in the southwest of France. It's 5 departments that form the region of Aquitaine. And the larger forest areas in Dordogne and the Pyrenees, they're not well presented on the map. I won't speak about it, because I usually work only in this triangle in the southwest. The triangle of the landed forest, or land of Gascogne, which is it's mostly pine, monospecific, with clear-cut systems, not so long rotations, a lot of private owners. So most of the soils are sandy pot soils or arenal soils at the coast. So there's dunes with arenal soils, and the rest is mostly pot soils. And what's also striking is that if you see the Garonne River here in Ardour in the south, on this plateau it's rather flat. There's not a lot of drainage systems. So this is about the sites where the forests are, where I want to make a presentation on. So what are the type of risks I want to evaluate? And that also found it somewhere on the internet, one of this big FAO-related reports. Biomass and land cover. Is the land covered by forest or by other vegetation? Is this biomass degrading or not? And so that's the first item to explore. There are, of course, links to production when you do so. More classical one, soil health, which actually englobes most of the items we are together here today, I would say, like, from erosion to fertility, landslides, etc. Water resources, and a few more, biodiversity, productivity, social and cultural services. So, despite my lack of knowledge in most of those fields, I will try to make some comments to all of them. And something also that needs to be pointed out is that there are links. If biomass decreases, productivity decreases, if fertility decreases. So there's a lot of links between those 6 fields. I'm not going to explore that. What do we think we know about the threats? We have not the disaster photos you saw this earlier this morning. We have just some machinery, we have some traces, trials, and some of the area look a bit like this when they're planted. So they don't look so threatened when I started the presentation. Some historical points about all of the 6 main groups, so biomass and land cover. The forest was mainly planted 150 years ago, and by 1900, nearly the entire triangle was covered by pine forest. Then what are the marking events that you could point out in this ecosystem? There have been a lot of fires. So someone spoke about, I don't know how many hectares in Ireland that went down by storms. But here there was only in the year 1949 more than 150,000 hectares. 150,000 hectares that went down by fire. So that results in the 1940s that there is less forest cover. Of course, this forest can be replanted. And it was, for a majority of cases. But there can also be more structural changes when they transform into agricultural use, but it could also be infrastructure, solar energy farms, urbanization. So when it's transformed to other uses, usually you will never recover it. There's also storms. So the figures here, 240,000 and 600,000 hectares affected, not all down, but at least 40% loss, occurred in no later than 5 years ago. Of course, again, it can be planted, can be replanted, but it has a cost and it may demoralize some of the owners to do so. There have been some frosts, has not occurred so recently, but some of the genetic origin that was used was a complete loss, so that could also affect the sustainability of the system and result in less biomass, less cover. There is drought. I just picked it out one dry year, but there's probably have been more before that, and it will weaken the forest and probably happens more often in the near future. There are already some diseases. It's more about 1 million hectares of monoculture. So if pine nematodes that are expected to arrive come into this monoculture, it probably will have a significant effect. So my summary to this is that land cover biomass probably will decrease because there is all kinds of threats. It can be transformed into agriculture, it can be transformed into constructed land. And if there is a storm event or a fire or a pest outbreak, the owner might say, it's too complicated, there's forest here, so I might as well transform it to something else. So, and also there is maybe water, nutrients, there could be some effect on the pure growth. So probably the cover and biomass and productivity will over time decrease a little bit. Soil health, what I know most about, because that's what we work on with my colleague, is about the limits from nutrients in this system. In particular phosphorus, as we can see here. So we see the amount, the concentration of phosphorus in this triangle. So the blue spots are what we have measured ourselves. And the other ones come from literature. So just to show that in this area we're really low in phosphorus at a global level. Harvest intensity. I will give you 2 examples, 3 harvest types and harvest types with increasing amount of roots that are also taken out. And in red, I gave a figure here, 30 to more than 50% extra export of nutrients are possible if you let the people harvest whatever they want. So the 2 examples are, the first one, we have nutrients and biomass on the left. This is a percentage of increase of harvest relative to stem only. So stem only is a standard and you compare to that. And we have 3 harvest scenarios, stem plus coarse roots, stem, branches and foliage, stem and branches. And as you can see, biomass, if you do so, you export maybe 15 to 18% more. But for some of the scenarios, like the middle one, where you also add foliage, for phosphorus and nitrogen, it could be close to 50% more of exportations of these nutrients. So in a nutrient-limiting environment, it is quite significant. Of course, you can argue you can always use fertilizer, but it has a cost. The second example, a bit similar. We have stump and tap roots That's on this side, and the figures 25, 50, 75, and 100 are a radius around the taproot that the machine will take out. So the 50 here will say stump and taproot and roots in a radius of 50 centimeter. And this is the gain of exports. And again, we have a biomass that is somewhere hidden in the middle. And one of them here, nitrogen, clearly exportation goes a lot farther when you also include the finer roots that you could have in this larger diameter of exportation. So just two examples to say that the productivity and site fertility could be quite linked, and you can't easily say, yeah, we can accept any which harvest scenario, because it's not true. The other points will go a bit quicker. Silvicultural management, we did some work on compaction related to earlier work in the soil group, and with a student work with Lisiane Douceron. But that didn't measure in any compaction, because a lot of sandy soils and they don't compact very well. But we observe some distribution in organic matter, because if the machinery goes through, it may push the material on the side. So it adds to variability, but it doesn't really is a problem it's not really a land degradation issue. Tillage, if you do that once the trees are already planted within the tree lines, between the tree lines, it could damage roots. And okay, the roots are very small when the trees are small, but the first roots, they are the structural roots, and they make the tree be strong against the wind. So you could have wind stability when there is new storms coming up. We know that there is probably increased drought that's predicted. It could degrade organic matter a bit more. And in our system, because it's a lot of sand, there's no clay, it means that a lot of the water also depends on organic material. So that's something we haven't measured, we haven't worked about a lot, but it's clearly an issue to consider. I would say erosion overall is not an issue because it's flat, but I saw on one of the maps that Luca presented that it's actually an area with a lot of potential for wind erosion. And indeed, if you go to the agricultural fields in spring when they plow, it's a lot of dust, organic material disappearing from there. So if land would be transformed from forest to agricultural land, it probably will increase a lot. But erosion, the way water erosion, because it's flat, is not really an issue. And the few places where you have a little bit of steep hills, dunes or along the river valleys, they're not intensively exploited, so it's probably not an issue. Contamination, that's special for you. We done Augusto, my colleague, he did a review on trace metal elements. On wood ash, and it appears that trace metal elements could concentrate in those products. So if you want to spread them in the forest, and if you do that not properly, you concentrate on one place, that could actually lead to a contamination, whereas there was no real contamination problem so far. And the same could happen if you use wastewater or sludge. It could create a new problem which is not there before. Landslides are clearly no issue. Okay. Well, I didn't mention salinization, but it's probably not an issue either. So my conclusion would be that there is clearly a problem here. I mean, if the managers, the owners and the managers do not agree on what they do, I think probably the wood sector will want more wood from the system. That the risk that they actually go beyond the fertility possibilities is actually quite high. Water resources, so some people suggest that there is already less water there than a few decades ago. I'm not sure there's many sources that actually have measured that. I mean, I'm not aware of them. Models predict higher temperature, longer growing season, and if you have more CO2, it probably means that you have higher growth, potentially. So you would also need more water. You have less water, but you will need more, so you evaporate more, etc. And agriculture lowers the water table. It could also drain water a bit quicker. So all these things, I would say, water is a key production factor. It always has been. But it will be of increasing importance. Biodiversity, it's rather monospecific. It was planted 150 years ago, so the open spaces that remain are quite good for some species like nightjars and short-toed eagles, hoopoes, bird species. I know birds. And for the rest, I can only say that actually the things that are interesting are the streams and dune lakes and coastal dunes. So some of the environments that are not really well known for the forest in this larger area are those places that keep the most of the biodiversity that is there. No idea about plant and sick biodiversity. So I would say, as long as forest persists, the biodiversity will be there to a certain extent. And even if you could imagine if maritime pine would be replaced by other species, or you would have borders with broadleaf species around to protect against insects, it could actually increase the biodiversity. So for the moment, I wouldn't say it's a particular issue on the land degradation point of view. Economic productivity, it's a bit the same open door. As long as the forestry sector says, the forests will remain. They need each other in a way. But interests can be conflicting. If the forestry sector says we need more wood, more biomass for heating, they could push it so that they harvest more. And at the end, the owner might have an area where it's poorer than before and it produces less. So we have to be really worried about this. And some of the extreme events, like storms, they cut down so many wood that it completely distorts the wood sector, and they have to find new products from somewhere else. So it changes a lot in how the people perceive what they're going to do in the next decades. And it could also lead to abandonment of forests to other possibilities. So if economics are weak, degradation will be possible. Social services, I'm not really want to say much about it, but there's many things that are good for the people that walk in it and use it. I would say, as long as the forest persists, these services will be maintained. Again, just until a certain level. Conclusions are very few. I would say land degradation not a main issue, and I would say there's two options. Either forest remains or it is transformed. So my conclusions are twofold. Loss of biomass, that's for me a main issue. And Jean-Michel has been implicated in this prospective reporting, that you could see that even in Aquitaine, where there's less people living, you see that the towns that move in, and there is part of the forest that disappear and are constructed. So land cover with forest will probably decrease, and so even there, degradation will, in this way, be there. Then, where the forest remains, you could also have degradation on another different level with the soil health function, because there's not enough nutrients. So just fertility will be an issue, and there will be over the entire area probably a problem about water stress. And all of them may lead to lesser production. So you have less surface, and on the surface where you have the forest, probably you have at the end a lower growth. And I would say pollution, compaction, they seem of negligible effect. And biodiversity, social and cultural service, they are probably proportional to the forest remaining. So as long as there is enough forest, it will probably be still there. And to conclude with, so this is again the little Gallian village with the wood industry around. The issue would be: do we need to protect against those invaders, or do we make alliances with them to protect the forest over a longer time? Thank you for your attention.